with all these slave masters posing on your dollar.
So think about the phrase, all lives matter. How does it make you feel? To some, it makes them feel delegitimized since it's a reaction to the phrase and movement Black Lives Matter. To others, it makes them feel as if they're saying something meaningful, something with some universal truth. But is that really what it's doing? Now, before we get into the phrase all lives matter, there's a deeper component to this phrase that we just overlook. That is the basic premise that all life matters. It is here where I find most of the problems with the phrase all lives matter, because the central premise of all life matters isn't true. What do I mean? First, let's define our terms. So what is life? Life is defined as a characteristic that distinguishes physical entities that have biological processes, such as signaling and self-sustaining processes, from those who do not, either because such functions have ceased, they've died, or because they've never had such functions and are classified as inanimate. Various forms of life exist, such as plants, animals, fungi, protists, archaea, and bacteria. Well, what does the word matter mean in this context? It means to be important or to have an important effect on somebody or something. So now let's look at the phrase all lives matter. Well, when we look at the word lives, it's the plural form of life. As defined earlier, life is a physical entity that has a biological process and are not inanimate. So does all life matter? Not really. In the broader scope of things, we do not treat all life the same. We eat other animals. Animals do not have the equivalence of human rights across the world. Very few places have any laws protecting animals against abuse. We have massive farms in which we keep animals solely for the sake of livestock. When we kill animals for processing, we do not always do this in a humane way, if that's even possible. We have companies that remove pests from our homes. We step on insects and swat mosquitoes from our skin. We openly hunt animals for the sake of population control and not just sustenance. We fish for the sake of relaxation. So, is it fair to say that all life matters considering how we treat animals? No. What about plants and the surrounding environment? We destroy the environment of animals for either resource extraction or to construct new capital investments. We pollute our streams and the air. We cut down plants with no pause for consideration about that as a living entity. When plants die, we don't hold funerals. We cut our grass. We burn forests for insect and pest control. So is it fair to say that all life matters? No. So then the word life has an invisible stipulation. That stipulation being we are probably talking about human life only. But even then, we run into a lot of problems trying to find what life matters in that context. In the context of abortion, the All Lives Matter crowd is kind of being honest here. They are seeing human life at the point of conception. However, does this life have the same protection as a human outside the womb? No. These lives are inherently treated differently. One isn't given a social security number, one isn't counted in the census, one normally doesn't get a funeral, one isn't protected from harmful things the mother ingests or consumes while in the uterus, one actually really isn't afforded any real protections under the law. So then does life in the womb actually matter? Not really. Well, what about after the fetus is born? A living human being must matter, right? Sure, to an extent though. Children are seen as property of their parents. Parents are the first and almost ultimate authority over their children. We allow parents to smoke in their cars with children present. We allow parents to discipline their children to an extent as they see fit. We don't take care of children who have parents that live in extreme poverty. The systems we have now are constantly attacked for funding in order to shrink the size of the government. We punish children through trying to make their parents more productive citizens. And we let them sit in poverty in order to teach their parents a lesson, but in the end, you're just screwing over the child. The state foster program is a joke. Many of the children never find permanent homes and end up being a criminal statistic down the line. Older kids in the state's care are often overlooked and end up turning 18 where they're just released into the world. We offer the bare minimum for their healthcare needs and constantly reduce food stamp budgets that lead to children getting less nutrition and future healthcare problems. Children are fed trash in schools, and not to mention our education system is incredibly underfunded to meet the needs of children. So, do children's lives matter? Not really. They only matter when somebody is trying to virtue signal. So then, do all adult lives matter? No, the fact that we have the death penalty proves this. Only certain adults' lives matter, those we deem that have value, because value isn't intrinsic in the human life itself. That value can also be diminished through the idea that free will exists and that we're all responsible directly for our actions. While I believe in a more deterministic approach personally, the idea that free will exists is more widespread. How is free will used to devalue the human life? Well, let's take a look at pedophilia. Most of society looks at pedophilia as the most evilest thing ever. Therefore, most people are okay with killing pedophiles because their actions towards innocent children are unforgivable. Society deems their life as completely valueless at that point. But why? If all lives matter, then shouldn't pedophiles' lives matter as well? Apparently not. I'm not making a judgment about pedophilia here. I'm just giving the most universal example I can to demonstrate how one's actions lead to the devaluing of their life in society. For some reason, when you're born, you're given the most value you will ever have from society. As you get older, the value of your life slowly diminishes as you age. This correlates with the time society deems you personally responsible for your actions. The day you're legally able to accept all consequences for your actions, your life loses a ton of intrinsic value. The value that your individual life has is then contingent on how good of a citizen you are. If you're a criminal, then society doesn't grant much value to your life. You live in poverty. Well, it must be because of your own doing and you're just a shitty person. So many people don't give them much value either. Do you work and contribute to society? No. Well, then society doesn't give your life much value either, since you're deemed lazy or a leech to hardworking citizens. What you produce for society overall brings value to your life. As you age, that inherent value beyond your contribution to society also diminishes. The older you get, the less inherent value your life holds. How we as a society treat our elderly proves this point. So ask again, do all adult lives matter? No, it all depends on the value that the individual adult brings to the table for the rest of society. And this is where I can see why some people are afraid to say that Black Lives Matter. A lot of the GOP views black people as contributing less to society than their white counterparts. In their minds, black people are the ones on welfare. They are the ones that declare bankruptcy, they're the ones that sell drugs and do criminal activity. They are the reason American culture has gone to shit with all that rap music and twerking. They are the ones that don't work because you hide their paycheck in their work boots. See, I think this is the crux of the argument for All Lives Matter. It allows them to say that all lives matter, but it doesn't explicitly say that black lives have value. They can use all lives as a shield from having to admit that black lives have no value to them. How can they, if they believe all the things I said above? How can they believe black lives have value in a society where human life doesn't have inherent value, but it's dependent on what everyone brings to the table? They can't. They can't both believe that black lives matter and that all life inherently has value. So they say all lives matter and hide behind the ambiguity of that statement. It lets them hold this imaginary moral high ground as people trying to unite and then divide. At the end of the day, when you break down the phrase all lives matter, no one can say that they believe that unless they can outright say pedophile lives matter as well. That pedophiles' lives have value. You will be hard pressed to find anyone to say that. Until I hear an all lives matter proponent agree to this statement, then I know that it's just an empty virtue signal to keep them from facing their own prejudices and bias. I, even as a determinist, have a hard time trying to agree that pedophiles' lives have value. Even though I know that pedophiles may be the result of a million variables that we have no actual control over, I still can't get over the fact that they're pedophiles. It is even here that I have some cognitive dissonance. I can admit it, so why can't the All Lives Matter crowd? Black lives matter. Black lives have value. Thanks for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Take it easy, guys.